All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday to everybody that is on here. I was just mentioning this before I started the recording, but this is 10 things I wish I knew as a new agent. I am not going to say that this is like super groundbreaking information by any means, but I do want to say that it is things that I wish I would have either really taken into consideration when I first started or really like understood and like let myself be okay with that information. And you guys will understand what I mean by that here in just a minute when I get started. But just so I know, if you guys will put in the chat how long you have been an agent, just so I know. I know I see some people on here that I know have been an agent for a little bit. Some are a little bit longer, but just so I know, because I'm curious. 2 months, less than a week, 6 months. All right, so we got a little bit all over the place. So even some people that aren't super new agents. So 8 months, 4 months actually working in it. Absolutely. So lots of different people that have been on here or have been here for different amounts of time. But I think even for those of you that aren't necessarily new, that hopefully this will be just helpful advice. Like I said, I'm not going to say it's like super groundbreaking by any means. 3 weeks, 3.5 months. Awesome. 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 Okay. So I did have a PowerPoint to go along with this, and it just wasn't really the vibe for today. I just kind of want to talk because that's what I'm good at. So if you guys want to take notes, feel free. I do have everybody muted, but if you guys have questions or anything that come up about anything I say during this, feel free to put those in the chat and I will be sure to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is 10 things I wish I knew as a new agent. So number one, and I know that you guys hear it all the time, is that you are going to be overwhelmed. And there is just no way around that. It's just like starting any other new career or new job. You are going to be overwhelmed. It is normal. It is okay. And I promise that everyone else has been in your shoes at one point too. And even me, I've been here a little over a year. There are still days that I get overwhelmed. So for those of you that are like, I can't do this because I'm overwhelmed, that's normal. You just got to figure out what works for you and figure out your routine. And even if you're only doing this part-time, I only started part-time. I just had to figure out what worked for me because there was a lot of information to take in. There was a lot of stuff to learn. And there was no way I was going to learn it all in a day. There was no way I was going to learn it all in a week. And even in a month from now, you're still not going to know it all. There's going to be stuff that you're going to learn all the time. So being overwhelmed is normal. And I always tell people, this is not going to make you rich overnight. I think we all know that. It's probably not going to make you rich in the first week. It's probably not going to make you rich in the first month. But if you take it one step at a time and you do the trainings and you do the steps that we kind of give to you guys, then, it will work out. You just have to trust the process. And I know people hate hearing that, but it's so true. And I tell people, babies don't learn to walk in a day. So it takes months of building up to that before little kids know how to walk and they don't need help anymore and they're not falling over all the time before they become a pro at walking. So the same thing goes for you in your new career. You're not going to know it all overnight. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. There's going to be a lot of things you try that don't work. And it's going to be a little frustrating and a little overwhelming, but you just got to try something else until it sticks because that is what is going to make you successful, right? The second thing that I want to touch on is not every client is a good client. And I want to know how many of you guys have had clients, even those of you that may have been here a lot longer than others. How many of you guys have had clients and you're just like, I know this is not a good fit? Because I know for me, I've had a lot of those, right? And at the beginning, when you're first starting out, it kind of sucks because you're like, well, I really want this first booking, or I really, really, really want to get this big booking, or I really want these people to come back and work with me, but deep down that they are not a good fit for you. They are not going to be a good client. They're going to be super indecisive and they have a super unrealistic budget and all of those things, right? So a lot of you are saying yes, still dealing with them. Absolutely know that feeling. Yeah. So a lot of you guys are in the same boat. And that's just any part of business, whether it's travel or anything else. You're going to have clients that just aren't a good fit for you. And that's okay. Because there's going to be people that don't see the value that you bring to the table. They're just here for a deal, and that's not what we're here for. And that's okay. There's going to be people that don't have realistic budgets and they refuse to accept that their budget is not going to get them what they want. And that's okay. And there's going to be clients who can never make a decision. They say they want to do one thing, you give them that, and then they say, oh, I don't want to do that. And so you're just spinning your wheels and you're doing all kinds of stuff and you're not really getting anywhere, right? Because that's super frustrating. And I have been there. I know a lot of you guys have probably been there with things like that. And they just want you to do all these things, but really they're not going to book a trip from the beginning and they just want to see all their different options. There's going to be clients who don't want to take your advice. They want to go to this resort because it fits in their budget and you've told them, that's not a great resort. You're probably not going to have a great time. The food there is kind of crappy. There's not really any entertainment. The beach sucks, all those things. And they say, you know what? I don't care. I don't want to take your advice. That's where I want to go because that's where it's in my budget. Or I had a friend that went there 20 years ago and they had a great time and I want to go there. And that's great and that's fine, but you know that they're not going to enjoy it, right? There's going to be clients who think you're a magician. So kind of that same example, they have that super, super tiny budget, but they want to swim up sweet and they want to go to Thailand and they want to do all these things, but they have like $800 to spend. And you're just like, well, that's not going to work. And you're going to have clients who are mean. I know I have agents that have come to me and they're like, this client just cussed me out and they told me that I'm horrible and all these things because I didn't want to book them at this certain resort. And that's a really crappy feeling. But guess what? That is okay. And it's okay to tell them that you're not a good fit for them and move on. And you don't have to be rude about that. You don't have to say, well, your budget sucks and I can't do this and I can't do that. And you're not going to get anywhere with that budget. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to say is, I just don't really think we're a great fit for each other. This is kind of more what I do, and that doesn't really fit into what it seems like your wants and wishes and things like that are. So I think it's probably better that you find a different travel agent than me because I cannot bring to the table what you are wanting or what you expect from me. And that's okay because otherwise you're going to be doing all this work and you're going to be spinning your wheels and you're going to give them 7,000 quotes for places you don't feel confident in and that they're probably not going to have a good time at just for them to say, oh, well, I don't want that anyway. So nobody has time for that, right? I don't have time to waste. I want clients that value me and, understand what it takes to go on certain types of vacations as far as budget and time frame and things like that. And clients who are willing to take my advice, especially on things that I am super familiar with, places I've been to, places I've experienced for myself that they've never even seen in person. I want clients like that, right? I don't want clients that are going to question every little thing that I do. I don't want clients that are going to make me work way harder and then get no booking out of it, right? So it's okay to say no to those people. And I know for those of you that are just starting, it can be very hard in the beginning because you just want to get that first booking, right? That's like the number one thing. You're like, I just got to get this booking. And if I do all these quotes and I give them all these things and they're definitely going to book with me. And I'm just here to tell you, I don't mean to, crush your dreams or anything like that. But those people that have you do all those things and they can't, make decisions and things like that, they're probably not going to book with you. And that's just a fact. So move on and find those people that are going to trust you. They're going to value you. They're going to be willing to spend their money for what they want, because otherwise you're just going to be wasting a lot of time and you're still not going to get that booking, right? So my thing that I always tell people is, especially when you're first starting out or you're working on your first booking, do you want a booking that you're confident in and you know that your client appreciates you and you know your client's going to have a great time and they're going to come back and they're going to tell all their friends and family how freaking amazing you are because you did all this work for them. They didn't have to lift a finger. Their vacation was amazing. The food was great. The pools were awesome. The beach was great. They had a great time with their family and they can't wait to plan their next one. Do you want a booking like that? Or do you want a booking with someone that you have to fight tooth and nail to even get an answer out of? You have to send them 17 different quotes before they even consider one of them, right? Which one of those do you want? Because I know for me, it's the first one. I want that client that's going to appreciate me and understand what I bring to the table, and they're going to go and tell all of their friends about me because that's how I'm going to get more clients, right? So another thing I always say is if you have a client with an unrealistic budget and you send them somewhere horrible just because it fits within their budget, they're going to remember that you sent them somewhere horrible. They're not going to remember that they had a horrible budget, right? And Jody says that all the time too. So they're not going to remember that they had champagne taste on a beer budget. They're going to remember this resort sucked and this is where my travel agent sent me. And that's what they're going to tell all their friends. They're not going to tell all their friends, well, we only wanted to spend $500 a person for a week. And that's what they spent, but they got what they paid for, right? That's not what they're going to tell their friends. They're going to tell their friends, oh my gosh, my travel agent sent me to this resort and it was absolutely horrible. We had to pay for all these extra things and the food wasn't good and the beach was super rocky. We couldn't even enjoy our vacation. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to say, well, our travel agent had a really small budget to work with and they made it work. And we knew that we got what we paid for. That's not what they're going to say, right? We all have those people. So I would rather tell someone that, we're just not a good fit for each other. What I book and what, my standards are for my clients' vacations doesn't really fit into the budget that you have given me. If you're willing to up that budget or you're willing to change X, Y, and Z or whatever, then we can talk. But otherwise, I think it's probably best if you find another agent. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if they get upset and mad about that, then that's another a red flag that, hey, they probably weren't going to be a great client, right? So Regina said, what do you do if you send them more than 3 quotes and they still don't like any? So what I do because I do charge a fee, I send 3 quotes within that fee, and I make sure that I qualify them really, really well so that I know the resorts or whatever I'm sending them is going to fit what they like. I have only had a handful of people come back and say, could you give us a couple more options? And usually it's not because they don't like the things I sent. It's just that they maybe changed their mind on their destination, or they have now added kids, so they need family friendly instead of adults only, or something like that. It's usually not because they don't like what I've given them. And the reason for that, like I said, is because I qualify them really, really hard in the beginning. So if they come back and they say that they don't like them for whatever reason, then I ask them, what about them don't you like? Because if it's the price, then I say, well, this is the budget you gave me. I am within that budget. So is that not actually your budget? Or, what about the budget or the price do you not like? If it's, I don't like how it looks, then I ask, what exactly are you envisioning for your vacation? So sometimes you do have to have those conversations, and that doesn't mean that they're not a good client. It just means that maybe you guys weren't on the same page from the beginning, and that's not really anybody's fault. It's just, it is what it is, So I always try to find out why they don't like those places so that I can make sure I look for places that are kind of the opposite of that. And if it's just something small, like, well, we don't like the restaurant options, then I can say, well, what kind of restaurants are you looking for? What kind of food are you interested in? Because there are some resorts that don't really have a lot of options. And, that's understandable if they want multiple places to choose from and things like that. When did I start charging a fee? I started charging a fee. I started at the very, very end of December of 2021. I started charging a fee at the very end of February 2022. So I was like 2 months in. I started charging $25. I did that for a year. And that definitely helped because window shopping and things like that. I know Jody has an entire video about charging fees if you want to watch that. But I actually just recently upped my fee to $50, and then obviously it can go up from there depending on group size. So that's totally personal preference. That's not necessarily something that you have to do, but I definitely think that it has helped me get closer to my ideal client because they say, okay, well, I have to pay this money up front. They really value what I do. They really take what I say into consideration. A lot of times their budget is a little bit more realistic because they're paying money up front. People with tiny budgets are not going to pay $50 to begin with. And that's just facts. So, like I said, that's totally personal preference, but I know it has definitely changed my business for the better. So, if you want to try it and see how it works, go for it. If that's not your thing, that's totally fine too. So, like I said, not every client is a good client, and it's okay to, you don't have to say, well, you're a bad client, I don't want to work with you anymore. Like I said, there is a nice way and a professional way to say that. Just let them know, hey, I don't think we're a great fit for each other. I think it's probably better if, you work with another agent who isn't me. And if you want to give reasons, you can, but you don't have to. No, we are not a good fit for each other is a complete sentence, and they don't need really anything else. Okay. So the third thing is that you should not be afraid to say that you don't know, because there are going to be clients that are going to ask you questions that are just hard questions, or that you just simply don't know the answer to. And that is okay. You are not going to know everything. And I'm going to get into that. That's like my number 4. So it's okay if you don't know right off the top of your head an answer to somebody's question. Like I said, I've been here a little over a year. Clients ask me questions all the time. And what I say to them is, I'm not 100% sure, but I will find out and I will get back to you as soon as possible, because that's better than just saying, I don't know. Because if you just say, oh, I don't know, then why would they book with you if you can't even get them an answer to their question? So my other thing with that is don't just give them answers just for the sake of giving them an answer, right? If you don't know the answer, that is okay, because they obviously don't know the answer either, or they wouldn't be asking you, right? So let them know, hey, I'm not 100% sure the answer to your question, but I will find out and I'll let you know as soon as possible. If I'm not able to find an answer, then we'll figure something out together, right? And that's kind of where everybody else comes in. So you can, Google things to find the answer. You can ask in the Discord chats to see if anybody else has experienced it. You can get on Q&As. You can ask in the Facebook groups. There is bound to be somebody that knows an answer. And if you have to, you can always, reach out to the hotel or the cruise line or whatever it is that they have questions about. And they can typically answer your questions if you're not able to get an answer from anybody else. The other thing with this is don't forget to actually do what you say you're going to do. So if you tell them that you're going to find an answer and get back to them, don't forget to find the answer and get back to them. Make sure you put it on your list of things to do, like, hey, I need to ask this question. I need to figure out the answer to this question, and I need to reach back out to this client, because sometimes it may be a make or break question of whether or not they're going to book with you. It may be something super important. Like I had a client recently that I booked at a resort in Punta Cana, and one of the things that was included in their room was a complimentary spa treatment per day they were there. But they wanted to know, what are those spa treatment options, because it was from a selected menu. So I had asked in the Facebook, or I had asked in the Discord chat. Nobody had experienced that before. I had never sold this property before, so I didn't know. It didn't say it on the website. I had emailed the resort. They had not emailed me back. It had been several days. They hadn't emailed me back. I had called the number that was online, and that person didn't know the answer. They transferred me to the resort, and the resort didn't answer the phone. And so then I asked in a Facebook group, and I had several agents comment on it. One of them gave me a BDM's name and information that I could reach out to. He responded to me almost immediately. And then I had another travel agent comment on that same post, and she said, I just booked this for somebody a month and a half ago. Here's the spa menu that they can choose from. So it took me a couple days to get an answer, but I let my client know, hey, I still don't have an answer, but I'm still working on it for you. Because if you just tell them, hey, I'll figure it out, and you never follow up with that, if it takes you a couple days to get an answer, that's okay. Just get the answer. And if you can't find the answer, things like that, then that's one of those conversations you just have to have. I have not been able to find this answer. If, like, for that example, if that's kind of a make or break situation, then we can always book a different room or book a different resort or something like that. But these are all the things that I have done to try to find your answer, and I'm just not getting it. So that's what I told my client. I was like, I've reached out to the resort. I've asked several other travel agents, and nobody seems to have an answer, but I'm still trying to figure it out for you. So always make sure that you follow up and you keep them in the loop, because nobody likes to be left out, right? People want to know, especially when they're spending a lot of money on their vacation, they want to know that you're doing what you say you were going to do, because that builds their trust. And once you finally get that answer for them, it's like, oh, okay, I know that she's going to do what I need her to do, or he or whoever. It kind of shows them, hey, they're actually going to be there to help me every step of the way on my vacation. I'm not going to have to worry about anything, because they're going to take care of it. Number 4 is, I just touched on this a second ago, but you will never know everything. So the travel industry changes every single day. You will never know it all, whether you've been here 2 weeks, 2 years, 200 years. You're never going to know it all, because it's always going to change. And I know a lot of you guys look up to people on our team like Jody, and people that have booked a lot of travel, and they, have a huge team and things like that. I guarantee you there are still things that she doesn't know. So none of us are ever going to know everything, you included, because something to be a fact today may change tomorrow. Just like when COVID was happening, we knew on this day you had to have a COVID vaccine to do this, 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 and this. And then the very next day it was different. All the cruise lines dropped their vaccine requirement, right? And that may not be something that you hear about immediately. Obviously, that's super important information, but not everything is going to be, just general knowledge like that. Some things are going to be one way today, and then a week from now they may change, and they may not send out an announcement. It's just one of those things you kind of figure out as you go, right? So don't stress about the fact that you don't know it all, because I know there are a lot of trainings every day. There are a lot of recorded trainings that you guys do when you first start and things like that. And you feel like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to know all of this? And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you're not going to remember it all. There's going to be stuff that you watch, and then in a couple of days, you're like, what did I watch? What did I hear about? What was that? And you need to go back and watch it again, or you need to ask somebody. and I've been here over a year. I still ask questions all the time. I do booking Q&As, and there are people that get on my booking Q&As and ask me questions, and I'm like, I have no clue. I have no idea. And I have to rely on somebody else that has done a trip like that or has booked with a certain vendor or whatever the case may be. I have to rely on them to answer the question. And same thing with Jody. You'll get on her Q&As, people start talking about cruises and Disney, and a lot of times she's like, don't ask me Disney and cruise questions because I'm not the Disney and cruise girl, right? She relies on other people to help her with those because she doesn't know it all, and neither will you, and that is okay. So my advice for that is to be open to taking in all the information, but also be comfortable with the fact that it may not always be that way. So the information that you know and you've been using forever may not always be the correct information, if that makes sense. Sometimes we have to kind of pivot and figure things out that are a little bit different and things like that. So as I mentioned, your mentor doesn't know everything. You don't know everything, and neither do all of the people that you probably look up to. So why do you expect that you would know everything, right? Especially for those of you that have only been here a couple weeks. Because like I said, I've been here a little over a year. I still don't know everything. There's people that have been here 6 years and they don't know everything. And that is fine. That is okay. And, don't be afraid to ask questions because we've all been in your shoes. Okay. Number 5, your team wants to help you. And I know a lot of you may disagree with me, but like I said, I've been here a little over a year. I have never felt like I have people that don't want to help me. We don't just say that we're here to help with anything you need and we don't mean it. And I'm not saying that one single person is going to be at your beck and call 24/7, because we do have other things to do. We have our own businesses to run. We have our families. We have, maybe other jobs and things like that. So I don't mean that one single person is going to answer your question 24/7. They're always going to be available. I'm not saying that at all. But if you have questions or you're struggling or you need advice or you don't know where to find something or you want a training on a specific topic or something like that, let somebody know, whether it's your mentor, whether it's your platinum, whether it's just some random person on our team that you really like, whatever that looks like for you, whoever you feel the most comfortable with, reach out to somebody and they will either answer your question if they know the answer. If they don't know the answer, because like I said, we don't know everything, then they will help you find somebody that does, right? It doesn't have to be just your mentor. Obviously, your mentor is a great resource for, I would say, for most people. I know there are some people that they say their mentor doesn't help or whatever, and that's okay. Or maybe your mentor is not in the business anymore. That's okay too. There are 1,100 people on this team. There is bound to be somebody that can answer your question or help you with whatever you need or give you advice or just be a listening ear because you had a really crappy day or you had a really crappy client, or maybe you had a really awesome day and a really awesome client and you just want to tell somebody about it. I know I have those days too. So there is plenty of help to go around. Like I said, there are 1,100 agents on Team Horizon alone. That doesn't include all of our upline and everything like that. So there is somebody that can help you. You just have to be willing to seek out that help, because I know a lot of people say, well, they don't check in on me, or my mentor doesn't check in, or I don't ever hear from anybody. It's up to you to let us know that you need help, because we're not mind readers. We're all adults. We assume that if you need help, you're going to be coming to us. Obviously, I know every mentor does things a little bit differently. I try to send out emails, every week or every so often to my team. But some people really just don't think about doing that, or they don't have the time to do it. And they expect if you need something from them, you will let them know. I am very much upfront with that with my agents that I mentor. I let them know from the very beginning, I'm not ignoring you on purpose. I'm not going to text you every day. I'm not going to email you every day. If you need something from me, let me know, because I have my own business to run. I just moved again. I know I move all the time. I just moved again. I have a lot of stuff going on. So sometimes I don't think to be like, hey, do you need something from me? Because I just assume, hey, if they're struggling and they really need help, then they will let me know. And your mentor may be thinking the same thing, or whoever you want to get help from. So my thing with that is, asking for other people's guidance is going to help you to see what you may have missed, or help you see things from another perspective. Because I know I have an agent, and I don't know if she's on here. I always pick on her, Hannah. She called me a couple months ago with this god awful client. He was so mean to her, and she was like, I'm just not cut out to be an agent. I just don't think I'm meant to do this. And I could see the potential in her that she couldn't see in herself at that time, because she was just so overwhelmed and, upset that he had been so mean to her, as anybody would have been. He just kind of said a lot of mean things to her and basically told her that she didn't know what she was doing and all kinds of things, even though she had worked her butt off to get this huge group of people on vacation, right? So I could see that potential in her that she couldn't see. So I was like, no, you're good at what you do. You have done all these trips for all these other clients and they have not said this. This person has been a pain from the beginning. I even had to talk to him on the phone when she first booked this trip because he didn't believe things that she was saying and things like that. So when you're kind of in the moment, sometimes you forget all of that other stuff. But when you ask for somebody else's opinion or further guidance or something like that, they can help you kind of see things that maybe you aren't really realizing yourself, right? And then after that, she booked like $20,000 in a couple weeks. And I was like, okay, but you're not cut out for this, right? So it's one of those things you just kind of have to take a breather, ask somebody for their assistance or advice or whatever, and then kind of get back to it. Don't let yourself and your business fail because you're too afraid or too prideful or whatever to ask for that help. Because like I said, we've all been in your shoes. We've all needed help at one point or another. A lot of us that are successful didn't get here by being quiet and not asking for help when we needed it. I know when I first started and even now I asked all kinds of questions because I'd never even been out of the country. How was I supposed to tell a client what they needed to do to go to Mexico? I had never been. I had no idea. So I reached out to people that I knew had been to Mexico and had traveled internationally and things like that. And another thing that I always tell people is utilize the Discord chats. For those of you that don't really use those. I know I have some agents that say, well, nobody answered my question. Sometimes it's because we don't know, and that's okay. But if somebody doesn't answer your question within the first hour, repost your question and tag your mentor, tag your platinum, tag somebody. And then that way we can kind of work it out because sometimes it just gets overlooked. There's a lot going on. So sometimes people just don't see it. Another great place to ask questions, if nobody in the chats knows the answer, are the Facebook groups. So the Rising Tide Facebook group has everybody in our upline in that Facebook group. They have a lot of different experience. They've been here a lot of different amounts of times and things like that. They've dealt with a lot of different types of clients. So somebody will be able to help you. And if nobody can, then you can always call Archer. You can reach out to them and say, hey, I don't really know the answer to this question. Nobody else can really seem to tell me either. Can you guys please help me? Don't rely on one single person to answer every single question that you have, because like I said, none of us know everything. So I have people that ask me questions a lot. I have agents that ask me questions a lot, and that's totally fine. But there are times where I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. So ask in the Discord chat, get on a Q&A with somebody else, something like that. How do we reach out to other groups than Horizon? So the Facebook groups, ask your mentor. They can put you in the Facebook groups. That's probably the easiest way because searching them is going to take you forever. So just ask your mentor and they can get you into the Facebook groups. Let's see here. Number 6 is, if you want to have a specialty or a niche or a niche, however you say that, pick something that you are interested in. Because although those big fancy luxury trips seem like the next big thing, that's how you're going to make all your money, that's how you're going to get rich really quick. If you have no interest in where those big luxury trips are going, because you're like the cheapest traveler on the planet, and I know that used to be me, so big luxury trips were not my thing because I was the type like, let me see what I can get for the lowest amount, right? I'm just going to be sleeping there, so why does it matter? I just want the cheapest price. So those big fancy luxury trips were not in my wheelhouse. I wasn't familiar with those things. I could probably never spend 10 grand on a vacation for just me and my husband. I'll just be honest. I'm not that kind of person. So those aren't really the things that I'm interested in. Those aren't really the things that I know a lot about. So I decided to kind of specialize in things that I cared about, that I knew I could relate to, and that I was interested to learn about. Because when you're interested in it, you are more likely to really spend the time to learn about it and make sure that you know every little thing, right? So if you're the type that really loves cruises and you could talk about cruises all day, you've been on 100 cruises and that's all you ever want to do, then specialize in cruises because that's what you're familiar with. If you have been to Disney, 7 times every single year since you were 4 years old, then that's probably a great thing for you to specialize in, because you can probably tell people every ride at every park. You can tell them what places to eat, what Genie Plus is worth it on what days and things like that. When's a good time to travel and when's not. Things like that. If you already know a lot about it, then that makes for a great specialty. Obviously, if you know a lot about something and you don't care about it, like if you've been on 100 cruises, but you're like, I do not want to sell cruises, then don't. But if it's something that you do a lot or you're super familiar with or something like that, like I know there's agents that have lived in Europe and they're super familiar with certain areas in Europe, and that's kind of what they specialize in because they've been there, they've lived it, they know kind of what it's about and things like that. There are people who, like me personally, I could spend the rest of my life sitting on a beach doing absolutely nothing with unlimited snacks and drinks, and I would be content. And so I specialize in all inclusives. I specialize in tropical destinations like beaches and things like that. That is definitely my number one selling point. Before I was an agent, I was an assistant wedding planner. So I worked with someone who's actually an agent with Archer, but she also has her own wedding planning business. So she did a lot of destination weddings. So I personally have worked on a couple destination weddings as a travel agent, but before I was an agent, that was my job. I worked with weddings and I worked with brides a lot. So that's kind of what I specialize in now is all inclusives, destination weddings, things like that, because it's what I know, it's what I can talk about. It's what, I can sit here and tell you all the little details, and people are more willing to trust you if you can freely talk about it, because you don't have to be like, oh, let me Google that. And I'm not saying that I don't have to Google things, because I definitely do. And I definitely still have to ask questions, but I don't have to as much for those types of things because I'm interested in them. I've done the trainings and I care to actually sit through those trainings and read all the little things about them. And I've been to them myself and I've got personal experience and things like that. So pick what you like, go all in learning about it. If there's things that don't know, like if you really want to do cruises but you've never been on a cruise, then start with the cruise trainings and go all in on that and make that your specialty so that you can serve your clients the way that they deserve, because your clients don't deserve somebody who, and I'm not saying don't book things that you're not familiar with. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you know more about it, then your clients are more likely to trust you because you can freely talk about it and give them recommendations and things like that, right? And even if you've never been to an all-inclusive, you can do the trainings and you can, read up on them and things like that. You can ask other people that have been and then eventually go on your own. That's what I did when I first started. I started out kind of doing all-inclusives, even though I had never been, but it was something that was interesting to me because I was like, oh, you just pay this one price and you don't have to pay for anything when you get there. That's pretty cool. That's kind of my cup of tea. I like to not have to worry about spending when I get there because I have a spending habit, right? So that was what I was interested in. So I kind of went all in on learning about that. And it kind of made me look like an expert, even though I had never personally been there. And then when I started actually going on those types of trips, it kind of made me even more of the expert. And when I say expert, I don't mean that you know everything, because like I said, nobody knows everything, but it just helps you freely talk about things a little easier, right? And not only that, but you're going to enjoy what you do and you'll probably get some nice perks for yourself, because I book pretty much only all inclusives, and a lot of times I get free nights or I get points towards free nights and things like that. Like in May, I'm going on a fam trip and then I have 6 free nights at an all inclusive to use, all because I did some trainings and I booked some trips, right? So not only do I enjoy learning about it, I can share it with my clients, but then I get to enjoy it on the back end. I get to go on an all inclusive vacation. So number 7 is kind of a tough pill to swallow for some people. It was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow for me at the beginning, and that is the fact that there will be people who will never support you, but you have to find the ones that do. And unfortunately, a lot of times those people are going to be your closest friends, your family, the people that you expected to support your business. And I don't mean that they don't support you as in they think that you're a crappy travel agent or that they think it's stupid you have a small business. That's not what I mean. I mean, they aren't going to support you in the fact of they're going to continue to book their own trips. They're not going to book their trips with you. And like I said, a lot of times that's going to be your closest friends and family. They're going to go on their awesome vacation that they booked online because they got a great deal, or they're going to say that they forgot you're a travel agent, which is a very likely excuse, but nonetheless, they're going to come up with excuses as to why they don't book with you, or I'll book with you next time. And then next time comes and you see that they're on a vacation that you didn't book. And that really sucks sometimes. It's kind of like a punch in the gut. And you're like, my own mom knows I'm a travel agent and she booked her own hotel. And even though I would have only made $10 off that commission, this just sucks. Like, my own mom doesn't support me. And I say that because I was in those exact shoes. My parents own their own business. They have their workers go out of town a lot on business and they stay in hotels. And guess who books those hotels? Not me, my mom. My mom books them. And what she told me was, well, we have a rewards number. I didn't think you could do that. but she never asked me if I could input her rewards number and things like that, right? Now my mom has a sticker above her desk that says, contact Sierra for all hotel bookings. And guess what? She still doesn't do it. And that's okay. I love my mom, but I've just accepted the fact that she's not going to book their business hotels with me. And I'm not going to continue to bother her because I'll just go find people that do want to work with me, right? And it's maybe not that she doesn't want to work with me. Maybe she really does forget, or she just likes to do it herself, or whatever the reason is. But I'm not going to let that stop me from booking travel, right? I'm not going to let that stop me from being successful. Maybe friends and family are embarrassed of their budget or lack thereof. Absolutely. That could definitely be a reason. That could absolutely be a reason. You never know what the reason is. And honestly, I don't care what the reason is. If you want to book with me, that's cool. If not, that's fine too. I'm going to find somebody to book with me regardless. So don't stress over people who don't care about your business and don't ever plan to use your service, and find the people that do. When I tell you guys, I have booked my first year as a travel agent, I booked $115,000 in travel. I would say maybe $1,000 of that was people that I consider to be my close friends and family. And when I say close friends and family, I mean people that I talk to like on a weekly basis. Family, I mean like immediate family, like parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins. Like that's what I mean when I say close friends and family. They just don't book with me, and that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? That's fine, because I booked $114,000 of other people in travel, and that's fine with me. Right? So just because they don't support you, that just should give you another reason to show them that you're successful without them. You don't need them to be a successful travel agent. They didn't book their 6 cruises they went on this year. That's okay. You booked 6 cruises for somebody else, right? So I kind of use it as like, I'm kind of spiteful. I'll just be honest. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just create my own success. I don't have to depend on you guys to book with me, because I'm going to create a clientele elsewhere. And I got a lot of people off of TikTok, and that was great. I've gotten people off of Facebook, and people that have found me on Google and from networking events, and people that I would have never known otherwise if I had just said, oh, well, my friends and family don't book with me, so I'm not going to be a good travel agent, because that's just not the case. I guarantee you, if you ask a lot of people that book a lot of travel, their close friends and family don't really book with them either. And I'll be honest with you, close friends and family are usually not great clients. So that goes back to what I said about not every client is a good client. So just because they're friends and family doesn't mean that they are going to be a good client. There are almost 8 billion people in the world, and if you let your closest circle keep you from succeeding, then you're just giving up on yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with them. It's all you have to create your own success and find other people that want to book with you, and that are willing to value the service that you provide. This all goes back to not every client is a good client. So make sure that no matter who it is, if they value what you do, if that's friends and family, that's awesome. I know a lot of people, their first booking is for their friends and family, and that's great. That wasn't the case for me. That still hasn't been the case for me, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So if they're not going to support you, then find other people that do, because there is somebody out there that needs a travel agent. And it's probably somebody that you've never seen, you've never talked to, and you don't know who they are. And guess what? They will be willing to spend all their money with you as long as you do right by them. So just be a good travel agent, and those clients will come to you. Number 8, when you are first getting started and you don't have clients, pretend that you do. And what I mean by this is, I know it sounds silly, but walk around like you are the greatest travel agent that has ever walked this earth, right? And you may have never booked a trip for yourself or anybody else. You may have never left your hometown. And guess what? Nobody has to know that. What they don't know won't hurt them, right? So my biggest piece of advice is fake it till you make it. Absolutely. Fake it till you make it. But if you don't have people filling out your inquiry form, or you don't have people interested in a trip, or whatever the case may be, pretend that you do. And what I mean by that is, pretend that you have gotten quotes. Even if you want to go in and fill it out yourself and make some stuff up for a trip or whatever, then go into the vendors that you are hopefully registered with and make up those trips. Create those quotes. Talk to people in public about what you do. But the biggest thing is to kind of get yourself prepared for when a real client does come along, because if you just say, oh, well, I don't have any clients coming in, I'm not going to look through these vendors, I'm not going to figure out which vendors have the best pricing or which vendor is best for this, I'm just going to wait till the first one comes, then that first client's going to come along and you are going to be super overwhelmed, and you're going to be overwhelmed anyway. But why would you make it harder on yourself, right? So go in and kind of look in the vendors, see how they work, see what they offer, see who offers deposits and who doesn't, see who, has the better pricing for certain all-inclusives or pays the better commission or whatever the case may be, and create those quotes. Because when you get your first client and you're creating quotes, I know I have a lot of agents that are like, can you just look at this and make sure this looks okay? And that's totally fine. But if you kind of get a little bit of practice in from the beginning, then you won't be so stressed out, and it'll be a lot less scary when the real thing comes along. So for those of you that, are like, well, I don't have any clients, I've been here for 3 months. Have you been practicing for when you do get a client? Because if not, that's where I would say start. Because like I said, if you go ahead and practice, then you're going to be more familiar with vendors long before you have clients. So that way you don't have clients waiting for weeks and weeks because you're like, oh crap, I don't even know how to use this vendor. Because there's nothing more frustrating than having to wait, right? On either end. And obviously I'm not saying that you have to get back to somebody with a quote in 10 minutes. That's not what I mean. But it just takes a lot of stress off of you. It takes a lot of time out of things if you kind of already know where to look once you've figured out what these people want, right? And once you're kind of familiar. Otherwise, you're going to be scrambling at the last minute, like, oh my gosh, where do I go? What do I do? I'm stressed out. And then you're not going to be able to think straight. And nobody wants to do that, right? We want to make sure that we give good quotes to our clients and things like that. So practice with the vendors, whether it's cruises, all-inclusives, regular hotel bookings, rental cars, whatever it is, kind of go through those vendors and make up trips. And then when you've made up a trip, you can use it as a mock booking. So you kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So you're getting work done, you're learning, and you can use it as a mock booking to promote yourself. So you get a lot of things out of doing that. Number 9 is to get on as many trainings as you can. So for all of you that are on here, I know this isn't like a vendor training or anything like that, but you're still here. So kudos to you, because a lot of people don't want to take the hour out of their day to attend a training, and they miss a lot of good information. And whether you guys think this is good information or not, I don't know, but hopefully for some of you it is. So whether it's a training like this, or it's a training on how to use a certain vendor, or how to create a quote, or a mock booking training, or whatever it is, or a Q&A, if you're making dinner, or you're driving your kids to practice, or you're sitting at your full-time job, wanting to absolutely leave and never come back, get on the Zoom. Even if you can't have your camera on, or if you can't say anything, or you can't put anything in the chat or unmute or whatever, get on the Zoom. And my last little thing for that is, even if you have to watch the recorded version later, watch the Zoom, because you never know what information you're going to receive. I get on Q&As all the time. Like I said, I've been here a little over a year, and there are some Q&As I get on and I'm like, I could have answered all those questions. This wasn't really new information. But a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times I get on there and I'm like, oh, that was just like a little random piece of information that I would have never known if I didn't get on this training, right? So listen to what trainers have to say, take in as much information as you can, and I guarantee that you are going to learn something new with pretty much every training you get on, especially when you're a new agent. I know when I first started, I was still working full time. I couldn't unmute or really do anything, but I would sit on Q&As with my headphones in at my job, and I would listen. And I will be very honest with you guys, probably 90% of everything I know right now came from me sitting on those Q&As or other trainings. Even if I couldn't follow along with a mock booking, I could watch how different people did them, and I could kind of take what I liked from them. And with Q&As, like I said, just random little tidbits here and there that I was like, oh, I didn't know that before I was on this Q&A. I thought I knew it all about this vendor, but I don't. So even if you're busy and doing other things, even if you can just listen, that's better than just saying, oh, well, I'm just not going to do it at all, because how else would you know if you don't ever get on the trainings? It's going to be a lot of trial and error without trainings, and that's fine. If that's kind of more your cup of tea, that's totally fine. But I don't know about you guys. I like to work smarter, not harder. If somebody else can give me the information and show me how it's done, and then I can just go duplicate it, then that's what I'm going to do every single time. Because I know I said you will never know everything, and you won't, but you can know a lot of stuff, right? So get on those trainings, even if you're busy, or you have kids screaming in the background, or dogs barking, or whatever. I know a lot of times when I do trainings, I'm like, if you hear my dogs barking, I'm sorry, but that's just part of my life. My dogs bark. So even if you've got all those things going on, even if you can just get on and listen, you will learn so, so much. I promise. And then the last thing, and this is for anybody that knows me, even a little bit, my number one saying that I got from convention last year, actually, and I liked it so much, I got it tattooed on my arm for the rest of my life, is do not let your excuses excuse you. So this can mean a lot of different things. So my biggest piece of advice is we are our own worst critic. We are the only person standing in our way. And you can try to blame it on other people, or say that it's your kids or your husband or your dogs or your job or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, we are the only thing standing in the way of our own success. Nobody else can make it happen for you, and nobody else can take it away from you. So stop telling yourself that you don't have the time, or you don't have the social media reach, or you just don't know enough, or you don't have a network of people, or whatever excuse you're coming up with. And I'm not saying anything bad about that. I have plenty of excuses myself. I recently found out I'm having a baby. We just moved across the country, and there's a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. And I could use that as an excuse every day, but I choose not to. I choose to, hey, I have a baby on the way. I need to make this work even more than I already am, because I have a baby that I'm going to have to pay for, and babies are not cheap. So I don't use that as an excuse. I use that as, I need to work even harder because I've got stuff to prepare for it. So get in there, do the dang thing, and make it work. Whatever it takes, don't give up on yourself. If you need to cry to somebody and you have a horrible day and you feel like your life is over and you could never be a good travel agent, and you just need to cry to somebody and get it out of your system, y'all can call me, message me on Discord, whatever. I'm always here to listen. I can give some tough love if I need to. I'm pretty good at that. My other thing is, I always tell people, which they say this a lot on prospect calls, is to act like you're investing $69,000 a month instead of $69.95. Because I promise you, if you were spending 69 grand a month, if you had that to spend, you would work really freaking hard to make that money back, right? Think about why you started this in the first place. And I don't just mean, oh, well, I don't want to work this job anymore that you have, like your full-time job. That was kind of it for me when I first started. But I want you guys to dig a little deeper than that. Is it because you don't want to work that job anymore because it absolutely drains you every single day? You come home and you don't even want to spend time with your family because you just want to be alone? Because that's a pretty big why. That was a big thing for me when I started. I absolutely hated my job. I was super depressed. There were days I did not even want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. And that's not how I wanted to live my life. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to do stuff I enjoyed. I wanted to hang out with my husband and not like hate being in the same room with another person, even though it had nothing to do with them, right? I wanted to enjoy my time with my family. I wanted to go on these vacations and not have to ask somebody for permission. And now that I know I'm having a baby, I want to be able to be there for my child. Like, I want to, when they get older, I want to be able to take them to practice and pick them up from school, and them not ever have to worry about, well, I wonder if my mom's going to be at this game today, or I wonder if my mom's going to be able to show up, because my parents were always there. My parents worked from home, and I was super lucky to have that. And I want my kids to have the same thing. Like, it's deep for me. Like, I'm tearing up, guys. Like, they always say, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. So if it's just, I don't want to work this full-time job anymore, it's not strong enough. I guarantee you, unless you just really hate that job and going in makes you want to cry every day. That's a little different. But I know for me, it's more than just about me. I want to be able to do all these things with my family, and I want to be there for my kid. And if I want to go out to take my dog for a walk in the middle of the day, I want to be able to do that, right? So figure out what your why is, dig really, really, really deep. And even if it takes you a little bit to figure out what that why is, figure out what it is. Put it up where you see it every day. Think about it anytime you think, gosh, I just really don't want to work today. I just want to lay on the couch. And I'm not saying that you can't take days off, because I take plenty of days off. But I know that when I take a day off, I have to get back to it the next day even harder than I was before, because I just took that day off, right? So I always have something that I'm like, no, I need to do this today because I have goals to achieve. I have these things that I want to do. I have this amount of money that I want to earn. This is where I'll be comfortable. This is where my husband doesn't have to go to work anymore. And we can go on these vacations without somebody having to ask off. We can all spend time together as a family because he doesn't have to go to work, right? So that's kind of my why. And like I said, I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it, but if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not strong enough. So really think about it and write it down, or make your vision board, or whatever it is that works for you, so that you have something to look at and be like, this is what I'm doing this for. And I'll tell you guys, when I hit those big milestones, like last year when I hit $115,000 in sales, there was a lot of people that sold way more than that. But my goal for the year was 100,000. And I hit 15,000 over that. I was like, this is what I'm doing it for. This is why I work so hard. Because when you reach those goals and you go past those goals, it is so fulfilling. You're like, dang, I know what I'm doing. I've got this under control. Like, I am good at this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, all those things. And sometimes the reason you're not getting there is because you're getting in your own way. You're too in your head. I can't do this because I don't have time. I work a full-time job. Guess what? I worked a full-time job when I first started too, and I still made it happen. Whether it was 2 hours on the weekend, 45 minutes after work, whatever it was, I still put in the time and the effort because I knew that I didn't want to stay in that job forever. I knew I wanted to make travel my full-time thing. So even if you don't want to make it your full-time thing, if this is just your side hustle and that's how you want it to be, that's fine too. But you still have to get to a point where you're not just doing this for nothing, right? There has to be a reason you want a side hustle. You're not breaking your back at work and then coming to do this just because, right? You got to have some kind of reason. So if you are doing things that aren't working, that's okay. Try something new. Repeat the trial and error method until something sticks, because what works for me may not work for you. I get a lot of people from TikTok, but I get that a lot of people don't want to use TikTok, or they don't understand how it works, or whatever, and they're really good at Facebook, or they're really good at in-person networking, and that's fine. I don't have the time to go out every single day because I do have dogs to take care of, and I don't feel very good half the time because I'm growing a human, so sometimes I don't do those things, but that doesn't mean that I'm not working my business, right? I'm at home all day, but I'm sharing my mock bookings morning, afternoon, and night. I am reaching out to clients. I'm following up with past prospects that I have. I am posting on Facebook. I'm doing all these other things. I'm not just, I'm not going out today and I'm not going to do anything, right? So I'm still working my business for sure. So we all have bad days. We all have bad weeks and months and, sometimes bad years, but don't let it get to that point. If you know that something's not working, don't keep doing it. That's like the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So that kind of goes for this too. If something's not working, try something new, or ask somebody else, hey, this is what I'm doing and I know it works really well for you. Like, what am I doing that may be different from what you do, and why is it not working for me? Or do you have any other tips or any other advice of what I could do that maybe would be a little bit better for me? So that kind of goes back to your team wants to help you. You just got to ask for the help. These all kind of tie in together. Hopefully y'all are seeing that. So a lot of us that are successful did not let our excuses stop us. We thought about our why, and I always challenge you guys, are you willing to give up on that why because something isn't working out exactly how you planned, or are you willing to trial and error, kind of pivot, do something else, try something new to make it work for whatever your why may be? Because I know for me, that was a big thing at the beginning. Certain things weren't working for me, and I was like, well, I'm not just going to quit, so let me figure something else out. And that's when I started TikTok, because I didn't really know anybody that was doing TikTok, and that worked really well for me. So I finally found something that stuck and where I got a lot of clients from. So I'm going to keep doing that until it's not working anymore, right? Don't give up on things that are working. And then the last thing that I want to leave you guys with is use all of that as the fuel to your fire. Put on your big girl pants or your big boy pants, whatever, and keep it moving, because we all have a life that we know we want to create for ourselves, right? And that life probably doesn't look like a 9-to-5 job where we have to ask off for every little thing and we don't get to spend time with our family and all of that, right? So don't let your excuses excuse you so that you can have that life that you want, because it's not going to happen overnight. I'll tell you guys that. It's not going to happen overnight. I've been here a year. It's still not happening for me exactly how I want it to. There are still things. My husband still has to go to a full-time job, and I don't want that. So I'm not where I want to be yet. So I'm going to keep working hard to get to that point. And then when I get there, guess what? I still can't quit, because I want him to not ever have to go back to that job. I have to keep at it. I have to keep up with it. Just like anything else, it doesn't just happen and then you're done. You got to keep at it every day and not let yourself get in the way of your own success, because I know a lot of people do that. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Like I said, I don't think any of that information is super groundbreaking, but I know sometimes people just need a little push, or they just need a little reminder that like everything's going to be okay. You know, you're not going to know everything. You're going to be overwhelmed. There's going to be people that you just don't mesh with, and that's okay. But, you know, take it one day at a time. If you have questions or you need help or you need to like yell and scream and cry or be really excited about something, find somebody, whether it's me or your mentor or another agent or whatever, find somebody to be that person for you. And it doesn't always have to be the same person. If it's just, I just need somebody that's available to let me cry, do that, because sometimes I know I need that, right? So I'm going to stop this recording and then I'm going